The following video is the conclusion of the reading of my book, Revelation Unraveled, and all 38 videos in this series are now available on my William Tapley channel. It's amazing, but true, that the correct chronological sequence of the third section of the book of Revelation has been overlooked until now. Past commentators have always remained somewhat mystified as to its juggled order and hidden content. As H.M. Ferret wrote, the numerous literary conventions employed by the inspired writer, septenaries and dovetailings, antitheses and recapitulations, parallelism and anticipations, etc., and their various combinations, make it very difficult to establish with certainty any detailed plan of the book. Rearranging the text according to the simple plan on the ROC chart, St. John's cryptogram, clears up these problems concerning order, content, and meaning, which the Holy Spirit evidently wanted to keep secret until the very end of days. Venerable Anne Catherine Emmerich prophesied that toward the end of time there would arise several men who would unlock the mysteries of the Apocalypse. This book fulfills that promise. It must be noted that although the entire text has been totally restructured, every word and phrase as well as all poetic images and descriptions are positively intact. It may seem incongruous for the sixth angel to blow his trumpet, huge army R4, before the third angel blows his trumpet, wormwood B3, but the new time sequence is correct because the huge army occurs during World War III, while the fallen star wormwood occurs later during the Great Tribulation. It might be easier to visualize if we use a sports analogy and see the angels with team numbers on their jerseys. There is no sport where the players score in the same sequence as the numerals on their backs. Still, it is very important that St. John numbered his visions in the original because they serve to mark the separation point of one event from another. Only 8 of the 36 events on the chart are not so numbered: W5, R5, B5, P5, and W9, R9, B9, and P9. And it proves to be fairly easy to find the breaking points for those passages so that they fit into the established pattern. Restructuring also separates and consolidates the passages which refer to the three wars. Section W9 and all the R sections, except R5, cover the first war, World War III, Babylon versus the Beast. 4 more sections, B8, B9, P6, and P9, describe the second war, Armageddon, the Beast versus the Lord. The third war, which occurs at the end of the millennium, Gog and Magog versus the Lamb, is mentioned briefly only once in P9. In summary, St. John's powerful warnings seem to be directed chiefly at us lay people rather than at the clergy, and are of a twofold nature. First, for those of you living under capitalism, Babylon, do not partake of her crimes, luxury, occultism, and abortion. Instead, you must go out from her if you wish to avoid her plagues. Second, if you live under the one-world tyranny, which will soon be all of us, do not take the mark of the beast microchip or worship his image. But neither can you take up arms against this evil system. As Jesus said, He who would save his life will lose it. He who would lose his life for my name's sake will find it. My personal advice is live your life so perfectly that you could qualify to be protected or raptured. But don't run and hide from the fact that, like the Jesus you love, you may suffer the pains of martyrdom. Postscript extrapolation. Sometimes St. John does not connect all the dots between his visions, and the reader must extrapolate in order to get the complete picture. For example, the three groups which fight with the Lamb against the Antichrist are the called and elect and faithful. These three undoubtedly are the raptured, the protected, and the beheaded, respectively. But only the called and the faithful have those specific words applied to them. Blessed are the dead, who die in the Lord because they keep the faith of Jesus, and blessed are they that are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. The elect, who also fight in the Lamb's army, which can be extrapolated by the process of elimination, must be the protected. Although the word elect is never applied to them, it is clear they are elected by God to go with Mary to her place of protection in the desert. It is also very possible that at some point in the original Greek text, St. John did use the word elect, but that it was lost in the translation. Another example is the possible connection between the kings from the rising of the sun, who crossed the Euphrates and invade the West during World War III, and the three wild beasts which express the Antichrist, the bear, the lion, and the leopard. The only obvious link is that the horses of the invading armies have heads of lions, chapter 9, verse 17, and the Antichrist has a mouth of a lion, chapter 13, verse 2. The Antichrist is also depicted with the feet of a bear, which probably indicates that Russia is one of the invading armies, and the lion and leopard may point to China and Iran. Again, it's possible that these extrapolations would become much clearer from a more exact translation. On the other hand, a more careful study of the Greek may indicate there is no connection. In addition, I claim another extrapolation for myself personally, namely the designation of the Apocalypse eagle. And I heard the voice of one eagle flying through the midst of heaven, crying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Revelation chapter 8, verse 13. The first eagle was St. Vincent Ferrer, 1350 to 1419, who warned people in many European countries about the impending breakup of Christianity, the first woe. He passed his eagle mantle to St. Bernardino of Siena, 1380 to 1444, who continued his mission. St. Bernardino often warned his listeners that they were about to receive the plague of locusts, which we now understand to be symbols of Martin Luther and his followers. When St. John uses the term one eagle, he implies that there are more than one. That the first two eagles, preached only about the first woe, also indicate more than one eagle. As the third eagle, my goal is to try and prevent the devastating effects of World War III, the second woe, as much as possible. Following my commission, there will come a fourth eagle, who will warn about the reign of the Antichrist and the last woe, the great chastisement, and the battle of Armageddon. Thus, from St. John's term one eagle, plus the historicity of St. Vincent Ferrer and St. Bernardino, we can extrapolate the last two eagles. whose missions are to reveal the final woes on mankind. This concludes the reading of my book, Revelation Unraveled. As I said at the beginning of this program, all 38 videos in this series are now available on my William Tapley channel.